There's a kind of beauty you don't notice at first. It doesn't walk into a room. It arrives quietly, without apology, without disguise. And for most of us, we miss it because we were trained to. From the moment we opened our eyes, the world began whispering in our ears. Perfect skin, perfect smile, perfect symmetry. The equation was simple. Flawless equals worthy. And everything else? Unseen, unloved, unchosen. But here's the secret no one dares to say out loud. The ugliest people, the ones mocked, ignored, or pitied, are often the most gorgeous souls alive, because their beauty was never built for first impressions. It was forged in the quiet pain of rejection. It was sculpted by years of being misunderstood. And every scar, every wrinkle, every so-called flaw is a line in the story of someone who survived being invisible. You see, when life strips away what the world calls beautiful, it forces you to build something deeper, a radiance that glows from a place no mirror can reach. Neuroscientists call it emotional depth bias, the human mind's magnetic pull toward those who radiate authenticity, because our brains feel truth before they see it. So maybe beauty was never about what's seen, but about what's felt. Maybe the ones we labeled ugly were never broken. Maybe they were just too real for a world addicted to illusions. And that's where this story begins, in the hidden corners of humanity, where the forgotten and the imperfect reveal what beauty really means. Because one day, you'll realize the faces the world once mocked are the very faces that taught us how to love. In this video, we journey beyond appearances, into the quiet places where true beauty hides. Each chapter pulls back another layer of illusion, revealing how pain, imperfection, and rejection often give birth to the deepest forms of radiance. You'll see stories, reflections, and truths that challenge everything we've been taught about what it means to be beautiful. So take a breath, open your mind, and let's begin this exploration of how the world's ugliest souls became its most gorgeous ones. Chapter 1. The Lie We Inherited. We are born into a world already edited. Before we take our first steps, the script has been written for us. What to admire, what to desire, what to become. Posters on walls, faces on screens, stories in magazines. They all whisper the same rule: beauty equals worth. No one ever says it outright. It's quieter than that, hidden in the spaces between advertisements, in the smiles people give to one person and not another, in the heroes we cheer for and the villains we fear. From childhood, we start collecting these invisible lessons. We learn that pretty means lovable, that symmetry is success, that smooth skin and bright smiles open doors, while everything else quietly closes them. And without realizing it, we begin to measure ourselves and everyone around us against a shape that doesn't actually exist. There's a term psychologists use: social mirroring. It means we learn who we are by watching how others react to us. When a child is constantly praised for their looks, they learn that beauty is power. When another child is ignored or mocked for the same reason, they learn that being different means being less. And that lesson doesn't fade. It burrows deep into the mind, shaping how they walk, speak, even dream. But here's the part we rarely talk about. The system doesn't just wound the unattractive, it quietly poisons everyone. Because once beauty becomes a currency, we all start living like beggars, begging for validation, for approval, for proof that we are enough. We stop seeing faces as stories and start seeing them as rankings. Think about it. You're scrolling through social media, and in less than a second, your mind decides attractive or not. It happens automatically, not because you're shallow, but because your brain has been trained to equate symmetry with safety and perfection with belonging. It's a survival instinct hijacked by advertising, and that instinct doesn't care about truth, only perception. The result? A silent epidemic of invisibility. Millions of people walking through life unseen, not because they lack beauty, but because society never learned how to look deeper than the surface. But the real tragedy is this: by worshiping the illusion of beauty, we lost touch with its meaning. We began mistaking decoration for depth. And in doing so, we forgot how to see the extraordinary humanity written across every so-called imperfect face. That's why this story matters. Because the lie we inherited isn't just about how we see others, it's about how we see ourselves. And if we can unlearn it, even just for a moment, we might start to see something far more breathtaking than perfection: truth. Chapter 2. The Unseen Ones. Every crowd has its invisible people. They move among us quietly, at bus stops, in office hallways, on park benches, blending into the background of our attention. They are not hidden by choice. They are hidden because the world never learned how to look at them. These are the ones who were told, in 1,000 small ways, that they didn't fit the picture. Their faces didn't match the mold. Their bodies didn't follow the rules. And over time, they began to carry that invisibility like a second skin. Not loud, not angry, just quietly tired. Imagine growing up always noticing the camera turn towards someone else, always hearing compliments that stop just short of you. The jokes that pretend to be harmless but slice a little deeper each time. At first, you might laugh it off. Then you start withdrawing. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to live from the edges of life, always observing, never belonging. Psychologists call this learned invisibility. It happens when a person's presence is constantly undervalued until their mind accepts a cruel equation. If they don't see me, maybe I'm not worth seeing. But here's where the story twists. Because while the world was busy ignoring them, something remarkable was happening inside these so-called unseen people. They were learning how to feel, how to listen, how to understand pain without words. When no one mirrors you, you start building your own mirror. One made of empathy, imagination, and quiet strength. Their solitude became a forge. Their rejection, a strange kind of education in humanity. You can see it in their eyes if you look closely. That rare depth that doesn't come from being adored. It comes from enduring. They read people's emotions like open books because they've spent their lives watching from the outside. They find beauty in details others overlook. A trembling hand, a nervous smile, a flicker of hope in someone else's eyes. They might not look like the heroes in glossy magazines, but they carry a kind of wisdom you can't fake, because they've learned what it means to live without applause and still keep showing up anyway. And maybe that's the quiet irony of it all. The people we call ugly are often the ones who've built the most beautiful souls. They are the listeners, the healers, the ones who notice what others don't. They know how it feels to be unseen, and that's why when they love you, you feel seen in a way that beauty never could. These are the unseen ones, not victims of ugliness, but witnesses of a deeper truth, because sometimes the world's brightest light hides in its darkest corners. And if you look long enough, you'll realize that what we mistake for plain or unremarkable is often the quiet face of something extraordinary. Chapter 3. The Science of True Beauty. For centuries, we believed beauty lived in the surface, in the curve of a jawline, the symmetry of eyes, the smoothness of skin. But what if the surface was never the whole story? What if what we call beautiful isn't about what we see, but what we feel? This chapter begins where biology meets emotion, where science begins to reveal what the heart already knows. In the 1990s, neuroscientists studying attraction made a curious discovery. When people looked at faces they found beautiful, the pleasure centers of their brains lit up, just as expected. But then they noticed something strange. The same reaction appeared when participants looked at faces that moved them emotionally, even if those faces weren't conventionally attractive. A different kind of beauty, one that couldn't be measured by features or symmetry, was triggering the same parts of the brain. They called it emotional depth bias. Our brains, it turns out, aren't just drawn to perfect faces. They're drawn to faces that feel alive. Think about a moment when someone's eyes filled with tears while telling you their story. Or the warmth in a stranger's smile that felt genuine, even if it wasn't flawless. Your brain remembers that, because the human mind evolved not to admire perfection, but to recognize truth. When we sense authenticity, when someone's face reflects something real, compassion, strength, vulnerability, it activates empathy in us. We don't see them as beautiful because of their shape. We see them as beautiful because of their energy. This is why two people can look at the same face and see completely different things. Beauty isn't a fixed image. It's a living exchange. It happens in the space between souls, an invisible current that can't be captured in a photo or a filter. Maybe that's why the people who've suffered most often carry a kind of radiance that feels impossible to define. Their eyes hold history. Their Their smiles carry survival. Their faces tell stories that perfection could never speak. In a way, our brains were never fooled by the illusion. We were just taught to stop trusting what we felt. We replaced intuition with image. And yet deep down, something in us still knows. The faces that stay with us aren't the flawless ones. They're the ones that remind us of ourselves. So perhaps beauty isn't something we chase. It's something we recognize. And the people we once labeled ugly may simply be those who've learned how to be fully human in a world obsessed with masks. Music swells gently, strings and piano intertwining, because science has proven what the heart always suspected. True beauty doesn't live in the skin. It lives in the signal, the spark of humanity that passes from one face to another and says, I see you. And now we turn to you. Think about the ugliest person you know, not by the world's definition, but your own first impression. What if you looked again? What if, beneath the surface, there was something profoundly beautiful waiting to be seen? Share their story. Tell us what you see now. Because this chapter, this truth, only becomes real when we start seeing each other for real. Chapter 4. The Turning Point. Every story has a breaking point, the moment where illusion collides with truth. For beauty, that moment is now. For generations, we chased an impossible reflection. Billboards told us what to fix. Magazines told us what to hide. And in trying to fit in, we carved away pieces of ourselves, until all that was left was the outline of who we were supposed to be. But something inside us began to rebel. It started quietly, in art, in music, in the unfiltered photos people began to share online. The cracks in perfection started to show, and through those cracks, something real began to shine. It's strange, isn't it? The more we tried to look flawless, the less human we became. And the moment we allowed imperfection, the wrinkles, the scars, the weight, the awkwardness, suddenly everyone could breathe. Because beauty was never meant to be a performance. It was meant to be an experience. Psychologists call it authentic resonance, the emotional connection we feel when someone dares to be unapologetically real. It's why a single honest smile can move us more than 100 polished photos. Why the faces of people who have lived, who've cried, fought, and healed, stay with us long after the beautiful ones fade from memory. This is the turning point, when we stop asking, do I look beautiful? And start asking, do I feel alive? Because the truth is, beauty without soul is decoration. But beauty with truth, that's transformation. Chapter 5. The Hidden Radiance. There's a kind of light that doesn't come from the sun. It comes from within, built layer by layer through pain, courage, and resilience. This is hidden radiance, the kind of beauty you can't manufacture. You can't buy it. You can't fake it. It's earned. Look closely at those who've endured humiliation, illness, heartbreak, or rejection. You'll notice something almost mystical, a warmth, a gravity, a presence. It's as if life, in breaking them, also carved space inside for more compassion, more depth, more love. They walk differently. They speak softly, but their words land heavily. They look at you, and it feels like they truly see you. That's not coincidence. That's wisdom radiating through imperfection. Philosophers used to say the soul leaves traces on the body, that our faces slowly become reflections of the lives we've lived. Maybe that's what we're seeing when we call someone beautiful, but can't explain why. Maybe it's not beauty at all, it's truth shining through flesh, and that's what the so-called ugly people possess in abundance, unfiltered humanity. Raw light, a kind of beauty that survives even when the world looks away, because the ones who've been broken are often the only ones who truly understand wholeness. They've learned that radiance isn't about being admired, it's about being authentic. Chapter 6. The Revelation. What if the ugliest people were never ugly at all? What if they were simply mirrors, showing us what we refuse to accept about ourselves? Maybe we called them ugly because they exposed our fear of imperfection. Because their courage to exist outside the illusion made our own masks feel fragile. But one by one, the masks are falling. The filters are fading, and what remains is something we can finally trust, the raw, unpolished truth of being human. This is the revelation. Beauty was never about appearance. It was about awareness. The moment we begin to see beyond the skin, beauty transforms from an image into an emotion. a living connection between souls. Because the faces we once mocked, the people we once overlooked, are the very ones teaching us what love really looks like: unconditional, imperfect, real, the gorgeous truth. So maybe the ugliest people were never cursed. Maybe they were chosen. Chosen to carry the kind of beauty that doesn't fit on magazine covers, the kind that doesn't fade, the kind that changes how others see themselves. And maybe that's the point of this story. Not to redefine beauty, but to remember it. Because the ugliest people, the ones who've lived, lost, and loved without pretense, they are the proof that beauty isn't something you see. It's something you feel. Now it's your turn. Think of the ugliest person you know, the one who never fit the world's picture of perfection. Look deeper. What truth lives behind their face? What beauty have you overlooked? Share their story, because in telling it, you may just discover your own.